I was watering my roses on that Tuesday morning in June when my daughter Karen walked up my driveway with a clipboard in one hand and her car keys in the other. She didn't even wait for me to turn off the hose before she said those words that would change everything. "Mom, we need to leave tomorrow. I've already sold your house." Just like that. No discussion. No warning. Like I was a child who didn't get a say in my own life. Before I tell you how this story ends, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I might just give you a shout out in my next video. My name is Cecilia Bush and I'm 66 years old. I've lived in this same ranch house in Bakersfield, California for 32 years. This is where I raised my 3 children after my husband passed away when I was just 34. This house holds every birthday party, every scraped knee, every Christmas morning. These walls have seen me work double shifts as a nurse just to keep the mortgage paid. But standing there in my garden that morning, watching Karen flip through papers on that clipboard like she was checking off a grocery list, I realized my own daughter saw me as nothing more than a problem to solve. "The movers come at 8 tomorrow morning," she continued, not even looking at me. "I found you a nice place called Golden Years Care Center. It's got activities and everything. You'll love it." I turned off the hose slowly, buying myself time to think. "Karen, honey, I never said I wanted to sell the house." She looked at me then and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Something cold. "Mom, you're 66 years old. You fell last month. You forgot to pay the electric bill twice. It's time." That fall she mentioned. I slipped on her son's skateboard that he left by my back door. The electric bills? I was in the hospital for a week when my neighbor Mrs. Chin had her heart attack, and I was taking care of her cats. But Karen had an answer for everything and I realized this wasn't a discussion. This was a decision that had already been made. "I've been handling your finances anyway," she said, checking her watch. "The buyers are cash, so closing was fast. The house sold for $420,000. $420,000. I nearly dropped my garden hose. This house was worth at least $600,000, maybe more with how the market had been." "Karen, that seems low for..." "Mom, you don't understand these things anymore. Trust me, it's a good deal. The money will go toward your care at Golden Years." Something twisted in my stomach. The way she said "your care" made it sound like she was doing me a favor. But I'd driven past Golden Years Care Center before. The parking lot was full of potholes and the building needed paint. This wasn't about my care at all. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Her designer purse, her new car, the expensive highlights in her hair. When had she started living so far above her means? When had I become something she needed to cash in on? "What if I don't want to go?" I asked quietly. Karen's laugh had no warmth in it. "Mom, you don't really have a choice. I'm your power of attorney, remember? You signed the papers when Dad died. I can make medical decisions for you, and living alone at your age is a medical issue." My blood went cold. I remembered signing those papers 20 years ago when I was scared and grieving. But I never thought my own daughter would use them against me like this. "The movers will pack everything tomorrow," she said, heading back toward her car. "Just keep what you need for one suitcase. Golden Years provides everything else." As I watched her drive away, I stood there holding that garden hose, water pooling around my feet, thinking about how my whole life was being packed into one suitcase. But what Karen didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know as she drove away feeling so pleased with herself, was that I had been watching her for months. I'd seen the way she looked at my house. I'd noticed how she always steered conversations toward my safety and my future. I'd even followed her to the bank one Tuesday when she said she was taking me grocery shopping. And 3 weeks ago when I found that real estate listing for my house online, I knew exactly what was coming. So while Karen thought she had outsmarted her old mother, the truth was something she never could have imagined. I was ready for her. Let me take you back to where this all started. It was a cold January morning about 6 months before Karen showed up with those moving boxes. I was in my bathroom getting ready for church when I heard Karen's voice drifting up through the heating vent from the kitchen below. She was on the phone and something in her tone made me freeze with my lipstick halfway to my mouth. "No, Doug, listen to me," she was saying. "Mom's house is worth at least $500,000, maybe more. If we can get her declared incompetent, we can sell it and solve all our problems." My hand started shaking so badly I dropped that lipstick right into the sink. "She's already showing signs," Karen continued. "Yesterday she asked me the same question 3 times. And last week she left the stove on. I'm telling you, we have grounds." I stood there in my bathrobe, listening to my daughter plan my life like I was already dead. But the worst part wasn't what she was saying about the house. It was the lie about the stove. I never left any stove on. I'm a retired nurse. I've been checking appliances before bed for 40 years. But I realized that Karen had been setting up these little incidents for weeks. Moving my car keys and then acting concerned when I couldn't find them. Turning off my coffee pot and then pointing out that I forgot, again. My perfect daughter had been slowly building a case against my own mind. After Karen left that morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and tried to piece together what I'd just learned. Doug losing his job. That explained why Karen's husband had been so quiet lately whenever I saw him. Their son Tyler needing money for college. Karen had mentioned his acceptance to UC, and I knew that school cost a fortune. But using me to solve their money problems? That cut deeper than anything I could have imagined. I started paying attention after that. Real attention. The first thing I did was start checking my mail before Karen could get to it. See, Karen had a key to my house. I'd given it to her years ago for emergencies. But I'd been noticing that sometimes my mail seemed lighter than usual, especially anything that looked important. So I started getting up early and waiting by my front window for the mailman. That's when I discovered that Karen had been coming by most mornings while I was still sleeping, using her tea to take anything that looked official. Bank statements, insurance papers, property tax notices. She'd been intercepting them all. When I finally got my hands on my real bank statements, my heart nearly stopped. There were withdrawals I never made. Small ones at first, $50 here, $100 there. Always with notes like household expenses or medical supplies. But over 6 months, Karen had taken almost $3,000 from my checking account. My own daughter was stealing from me one grocery run at a time. Then I started noticing the gaslighting. That's what they call it when someone tries to make you think you're losing your mind. Karen would move something, my reading glasses, my car keys, my favorite coffee mug, and then act worried when I couldn't find it. "Mom, you left these in the refrigerator again," she'd say, pulling my glasses from where she'd hidden them behind the milk. Or she'd call my other children, Michael, Lisa, and David, and tell them I was having more episodes. "She seems confused lately," I heard her tell my son Michael during one of their video calls. "Yesterday she couldn't remember where she put her purse and she asked me 3 times what day it was." None of it was true. But Michael is stationed overseas with the army, so all he had was Karen's word. My daughter Lisa is a busy surgeon in Portland. She barely has time to call, let alone visit. And my youngest, David, well, he's always struggled with money just like Karen, so I suspect she promised him a cut of whatever she got from selling my house. The more I watched, the clearer it became. Karen wasn't just stealing my money, she was stealing my reputation with my own family. She was making them think I was losing my mind so they'd support her plan to put me in a nursing home. But the worst discovery came in March. I'd been going through my papers, the ones I managed to get before Karen could intercept them, when I found something that made my blood run cold. It was a copy of a real estate appraisal for my house, dated 3 months earlier. An appraisal I never requested, signed by someone I'd never met. The appraiser had valued my house at $640,000. Karen had told me on that Tuesday morning that she sold it for $420,000. That meant my daughter was planning to pocket over $200,000 of my money. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was at the bottom of the appraisal form, where I saw a signature that made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped the paper. It was my signature. But I had never signed that form. I had never even seen it before. Karen had forged my name. As I sat there staring at that fake signature, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. If Karen was willing to forge my signature on an appraisal, what else had she signed my name to? How long had she been planning this? And how far was she willing to go to get her hands on my house? I thought about calling the police right then. But who would believe me? Karen had been so careful, so clever. She'd made me look confused and forgetful to everyone who mattered. If I accused her of forgery, she'd just say it was another one of my episodes. Now, if I was going to stop her, I needed proof. Real proof that even Karen couldn't explain away. So I made a decision that night. I was going to beat my daughter at her own game. But first I had to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. After finding that forged signature, I knew I had to be smarter than Karen. She thought she was dealing with a confused old woman, so that's exactly what I decided to let her think. The next morning when she came by with coffee and muffins, her usual routine before going through my mail, I put on the performance of my life. "Oh, Karen, honey," I said, shuffling to the door in my slippers. "I was just looking for my reading glasses. Have you seen them anywhere?" She smiled that fake sweet smile and pulled them from the kitchen counter where I'd deliberately left them. "Here they are, Mom. You left them right here." "Did I? Oh my, I don't remember doing that." I shook my head like I was disappointed in myself. "Thank goodness you're looking after me." Karen's smile got wider. She thought her plan was working perfectly. But while she was going through my mail in the kitchen, I was in my bedroom making the most important phone call of my life. "Robert Martinez Law Office. This is Sandra speaking." "Sandra, it's Cecilia Bush. Is Robert available? I need to speak with him urgently." Robert Martinez had been Frank's friend since high school. He'd handled our wills, our house papers, everything important for 30 years. If anyone would believe me, it would be Robert. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Robert's office with a manila folder full of evidence. "Cecilia, this is serious," Robert said, looking through the forged appraisal papers. "If Karen is forging your signature, that's a felony. And if she's using power of attorney to steal from you, that's elder abuse." "But Robert, who's going to believe me? She's made everyone think I'm losing my mind." "We'll document everything," he said firmly. "From now on, you write down every conversation, every incident. Take photos. Save every piece of paper. We're building a case." That afternoon I started my real investigation. First, I looked into Golden Years Care Center, the place Karen wanted to dump me. What I found made my stomach turn. The State Health Department website showed 3 violations in the past year. Understaffing. Improper medication handling. One incident where a resident fell and no one found her for 6 hours. This wasn't a care facility. It was a warehouse where Karen could park me while she spent my money. But I also discovered something else. The monthly cost at Golden Years was $3,200. With my house money, Karen could afford to keep me there for over 10 years. She wasn't planning for my care. She was planning for my imprisonment. Over the next few weeks, I started what Karen thought were just friendly neighborhood chats. But really, I was building my own network of allies. Mrs. Chin next door had always liked me, especially after I helped her when she had her heart attack. I told her I was worried about my memory, and asked if she'd noticed anything strange. Strange. Mrs. Chen laughed. Cecilia, you're sharper than women half your age. Just yesterday you helped me figure out my cable bill when the company tried to overcharge me. I asked her to start keeping an eye on my house, especially when Karen visited. Just in case I really am having memory problems, I told her. I did the same thing with my friend Margaret from church and with Jim who runs the corner grocery store. I planted little seeds of doubt about Karen's story, all while pretending to be concerned about my own mental state. But my biggest advantage was something Karen didn't even know existed. When Frank died 8 years ago, he left me a life insurance policy worth $250,000. But here's the thing, I never told the kids about it. Frank had been worried about them coming to us for money all the time, so we decided to keep that policy secret. I'd invested that money carefully over the years. By now it was worth almost $400,000. Money that Karen couldn't touch, couldn't steal, couldn't even find. That secret account was going to be my weapon. While Karen thought she was stealing my only nest egg, I actually had enough money to take care of myself for the rest of my life. I didn't need her help, and I certainly didn't need her to sell my house. But I still had to stop her before she destroyed my life completely. In April, I made another discovery that showed me just how deep Karen's lies went. I'd been checking my credit report, something Robert had taught me to do, when I found something that made my heart race. Karen had applied for a credit card in my name. A credit card with a $15,000 limit that I never authorized. She wasn't just planning to steal from me in the future. She was already doing it. That's when I realized I needed help beyond just Robert's legal advice. Karen had been so careful, so methodical. She'd been planning this for months, maybe years. If I was going to stop her, I needed to think bigger than just family court. I needed to expose her publicly in a way she couldn't lie or manipulate her way out of. So on a Tuesday morning in late April, while Karen was at the bank supposedly helping with my accounts, I made a phone call that would change everything. Channel 9 News, this is Jessica. Hello Jessica, my name is Cecilia Bush and I have a story about elder abuse that I think your viewers need to hear. My own daughter is trying to steal my house and put me in a nursing home, and she's been forging my signature to do it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mrs. Bush, that's a very serious accusation. Do you have proof? I looked down at the folder on my kitchen table. Bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals. The forged appraisal. The credit card application I never signed. Photos of Golden Years Care Center's violation notices. Jessica, I said, I have more proof than you'll know what to do with. 3 days after I called Channel 9 News, Karen showed up with her laptop and that fake concerned look I'd grown to hate. Mom, Michael wants to video chat with you, she said, setting up the computer on my kitchen table. He's worried about you. My heart sank. Michael was my eldest, stationed in Germany with the army. He'd always been the responsible one, the one who checked on me regularly. If Karen had gotten to him with her lies, this was going to hurt. When Michael's face appeared on the screen, I could see the worry in his eyes immediately. Hi Mom, how are you feeling? He asked, and something in his tone told me he'd already made up his mind about my condition. I'm fine, honey. Missing you, of course. Mom, Karen's been telling me you've been having some episodes lately. Forgetting things, getting confused. I glanced at Karen, who was standing behind the laptop with her arms crossed, watching my every reaction. I don't think I'm any more forgetful than normal, I said carefully. But Mom, you left the stove on last week. And you couldn't find your car keys for 3 hours on Tuesday. None of that was true, but I knew Michael couldn't see Karen shaking her head at me from behind the camera, silently warning me not to argue. Maybe I am getting a little scattered, I said, hating every word. But I'm managing fine. That's the thing, Mom. Karen thinks it might be time to consider getting some help. Maybe a nice assisted living place where people can look after you. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own son, the boy I'd raised to be honorable and protective, was helping Karen steal my life from me. "Michael, I don't want to leave my house," I said quietly. "I know, Mom, but sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. For our own safety." After the call ended, Karen looked satisfied. "See? Even Michael agrees. This is the right thing to do." But 2 hours later, everything changed. I was in my garden watering the roses when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. When I looked up, I nearly dropped my hose. It was my daughter Lisa, and she looked furious. Lisa is a surgeon in Portland. She works 18-hour days and barely has time to call, let alone visit. The last time I'd seen her in person was Christmas, 6 months ago. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded, marching up to Karen, who was loading boxes into her car. "Why are there moving boxes in Mom's driveway?" Karen's face went pale. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" "I flew down for a conference in LA and thought I'd surprise Mom. But instead I find you packing up her house like she's dead." "Lisa, calm down. I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain why you're putting our mother in a nursing home without discussing it with anyone? Explain why you sold her house without her consent." I walked over slowly, pretending to be confused by all the shouting. "Girls, what's all this fuss about?" I asked in my most bewildered voice. "Mom, did you agree to sell the house?" Lisa asked me directly. I looked between my daughters, seeing the fear in Karen's eyes. This was my chance. "Well, Karen said it was for the best," I said carefully. "But I'm not sure I understand all the paperwork." "What paperwork?" Lisa demanded, turning back to Karen. "The power of attorney papers," Karen said quickly. "Mom signed them years ago. I can make decisions about her care." "Care decisions, Karen. Not financial decisions. There's a difference." That's when I heard another car pull up. David's minivan, full of his wife Amy and their 2 teenagers. David is my youngest at 38, and he's always struggled to make ends meet. Amy works part-time at a daycare, and with 2 kids heading to college soon, money is tight. As soon as David got out of his car, I could see the guilt written all over his face. "Hey, Mom," he said, giving me a hug that felt forced. "How are you holding up with all the changes?" "What changes?" Lisa asked sharply. David looked at Karen nervously. "The move to the care facility. Karen said it was all arranged." "And what exactly did Karen promise you, David?" Lisa's voice could have cut glass. David's face turned red. "I don't know what you mean." "She promised you money from the house sale, didn't she?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. My youngest son had been bought off with promises of cash from my house. That's when I decided to drop my first bomb. "You know," I said, suddenly sounding much more alert than I had all day, "I was thinking about that house sale, Karen. 420,000 seems quite low. Mrs. Chin next door told me the Hendersons got 600,000 for their house last month, and it's smaller than mine." Karen's face went white. "Mom, real estate is complicated. You don't understand market values." "Maybe not," I said, tilting my head like I was trying to remember something. "But I do understand signatures. And I'm quite sure I never signed any papers to sell this house." The explosion that followed was everything I'd hoped for. "What do you mean you didn't sign the papers?" Lisa demanded. Mom's been confused," Karen stammered. "She signed them, she just doesn't remember." "Show me the papers," Lisa said. "I don't have them with me." "Then go get them." "I can't, they're with the real estate agent." David was looking between his sisters like he was watching a tennis match, finally realizing he might have backed the wrong side. "Karen," I said sweetly, "maybe you should explain to Lisa and David about that nice credit card you got in my name. The one with the $15,000 limit." If Karen had gone white before, now she looked green. Mom, you're confused again. Am I? Or am I having one of those lucid moments Dr. Peterson always talks about? Karen's mask finally slipped completely. You need to stop this right now, Mother. You're making things worse for yourself. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to help you. But if you keep acting like this, I'll have no choice but to have you evaluated for competency. A judge can order you into care whether you like it or not. Lisa stepped between us. Karen, what the hell is wrong with you? But Karen was past caring about appearances now. She grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door and shoved them in her pocket. Then she took my phone from the counter. Until Mom calms down and starts thinking clearly, I'm keeping these, she announced. For her own safety. Give me back my keys, I said firmly. No. You're not driving anywhere until you see a doctor. That's when my neighbor Martha Rodriguez appeared at my back door, which I'd left open for the breeze. Cecilia, is everything okay? I heard shouting. Martha is a retired teacher who moved in next door 2 years ago. She's about 10 years younger than me, still drives and has a sharp eye for trouble. Martha, perfect timing, I said. Karen just took my car keys and phone. She says it's for my own safety. Martha looked at Karen with the same expression she probably used on misbehaving students. Young lady, you can't take your mother's property. That's theft. This is a family matter, Karen snapped. It becomes a community matter when you're shouting loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear, Martha replied calmly. And I've been keeping an eye on things lately. Your mother seems perfectly capable to me. You don't understand her condition. I understand that yesterday she helped me program my new TV remote, and this morning she gave me excellent advice about my rose garden. If she's incompetent, then so am I. Karen looked around at the faces surrounding her. Lisa's anger, David's growing doubt, Martha's steady disapproval, and my own calm defiance. For the first time since this whole thing started, Karen looked truly scared. Fine, she said, throwing my keys on the counter. But this isn't over, Mother. If you won't accept help willingly, I'll find other ways to get it for you. After Karen stormed out, Lisa turned to me with new respect in her eyes. Mom, are you really okay? Because the way you just handled that. I smiled. Honey, I may be 66, but I'm not dead yet. What I didn't know was that Karen had seen Martha arrive through the back door, and she'd been listening from the side yard. She'd heard enough of our conversation to realize that her confused, helpless mother might not be as helpless as she thought. After the explosive confrontation in my driveway, I thought Karen might back down. I was wrong. 2 days later, she showed up with her laptop again, but this time she had a plan. Mom, Michael wants to see you again, she said, setting up the computer. He's concerned about what happened the other day. When Michael's face appeared on the screen, I could see he looked tired. It was probably 2 a.m. in Germany, but he was making time for what Karen had convinced him was a family crisis. Mom, Lisa called me. She said you got confused and confrontational when Karen was trying to help you move. I started to respond, but Karen quickly moved into the camera frame. Michael, watch this, she said. Then she turned to me. Mom, what day is it? I knew this was a test, but I answered honestly. It's Thursday, May 15th. And what year? 2024. Okay, and Mom, do you remember what we had for breakfast? Here's where Karen was clever. We hadn't had breakfast together. She'd arrived after I'd already eaten, but she was setting me up to look confused. I had my usual cereal and coffee, I said. No, Mom, remember? We made pancakes together. You insisted on using the stove even though I offered to help. My blood boiled, but I knew if I got angry it would just prove her point. Oh, I said, trying to look embarrassed. I guess I forgot. Michael's face on the screen showed exactly the reaction Karen wanted. Concern mixed with sad acceptance. Mom, maybe Karen's right. Maybe you do need some help. But then something unexpected happened. Lisa appeared in the background of Michael's video call. She was in Germany too, having flown there after our confrontation to talk to Michael in person. Let me talk to Mom, Lisa said, pushing Michael aside. Mom, it's Lisa. I want you to tell me something. Do you remember helping Mrs. Rodriguez with her TV remote yesterday? Karen's face went white. She hadn't known about that. Yes, of course. Her grandson got her one of those smart TVs for her birthday, and she couldn't figure out how to change channels. And did you help her figure it out? It took us about an hour, but we got it working. She made us some lemonade afterward. Lisa looked directly at Karen through the camera. Funny how Mom can remember details from yesterday but supposedly can't remember making pancakes this morning. Lisa, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Lisa cut her off. We're going to talk more about this later, Karen. After the call ended, Karen looked shaken but not defeated. You can't keep fighting this, Mom, she said quietly. The moving truck comes Monday morning whether you like it or not. That's when I realized how desperate Karen had become. It was Thursday. She was giving me 4 days to accept my fate. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I walked over to Martha's house for what she thought was a friendly coffee visit. Martha, I need to show you something, I said once we were settled in her kitchen. She pulled out her tablet and showed me something that made my heart race. I've been keeping track of Karen's visits like you asked. But I also have something better. On her screen was security camera footage from her backyard, which had a clear view of my kitchen window. This is from 3 days ago, Martha said, pressing play. The video showed Karen in my kitchen going through my mail, taking several envelopes and putting them in her purse. Then it showed her moving my reading glasses from the counter to inside my refrigerator. She's been setting you up, Martha said grimly. And I've got weeks of footage showing her doing it. My hands were shaking as I watched my daughter systematically trying to make me look incompetent. Martha, would you be willing to show this to other people if needed? Honey, I'd show it to a judge if that's what it takes. That afternoon, I made another visit that Karen didn't know about. My friend Eleanor Patterson from church had been a family court judge for 25 years before retiring. When I called her, she agreed to meet me at the library where we could talk privately. Cecilia, what your daughter is doing is called financial elder abuse, Eleanor said after I showed her my evidence. The forgery alone could put her in prison for 5 years. But Eleanor, she has power of attorney. Doesn't that protect her? Power of attorney is for medical decisions and emergency financial situations. It doesn't give her the right to steal from you or forge your signature. And it certainly doesn't give her the right to sell your house without your consent. Eleanor leaned forward. Here's what we need to do. We need to get Karen to admit what she's done on record. How? You said she's coming back with more papers for you to sign? I nodded. She mentioned something about care facility admission forms. Perfect. When she brings those papers, I want you to act confused and ask her to explain everything step by step. And I want you to record the conversation. That night, I practiced with the voice recording app on my phone until I could start it without looking. Saturday morning, Karen arrived with a thick folder of papers and a fake smile. Mom, these are just some forms for golden years. Nothing complicated, just signing your name to authorize your care. I put on my most bewildered expression. Karen, honey, I'm so confused about all this. Can you explain to me again why I have to leave my house? Because you can't take care of yourself anymore, Mom. We've been through this. I tapped the record button on my phone, which was sitting face down on the table next to the papers. But I feel fine. And Mrs. Rodriguez says I seem fine to her. Mrs. Rodriguez doesn't understand your condition. What condition exactly? Karen sighed impatiently. Your memory problems, Mom. The confusion, the forgetfulness. But what if I don't have memory problems? What if I'm perfectly fine and you're just mistaken? You're not fine, Mom. Look, just sign the papers, okay? I don't understand why I have to sign so many things. The house papers, the credit card applications. Karen froze. What credit card applications? The ones you signed for me. The ones with my name on them that I never applied for. Mom, you're confused again. Am I? Or did you forge my signature like you did on the house appraisal? There was a long silence. Then Karen's voice changed completely. Fine. Yes, I signed some papers for you. But it was for your own good. You would have just gotten confused by all the details. So you admit you forged my signature? I handled your paperwork because you can't handle it anymore. I had her. Right there on recording admitting to forgery. But then I heard David's voice from my living room. Mom? Karen? What's going on? David had arrived with his wife Amy, and from the look on Amy's face, they'd heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. Karen, Amy said slowly, did you just admit to forging your mother's signature? Amy, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've been committing fraud and you're trying to steal from Cecilia. David looked torn between his sister and his wife. Karen said Mom needed help. Mom doesn't need the kind of help that involves stealing her house and forging her name on documents, Amy said firmly. David, we can't be part of this. But Karen promised. I don't care what she promised. This is wrong and I won't let our children think this is how families treat each other. As Amy pulled David toward the door, Karen's desperation reached a new level. You can't all turn against me. I'm trying to save this family. Mom's house money could help all of us. By stealing it? Amy called back as they left. After they were gone, Karen turned to me with pure fury in her eyes. You think you're so clever, don't you? Recording our conversation, turning my own family against me. My blood turned to ice. She'd seen my phone. I saw you tap that phone, Mother. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? She grabbed my phone and deleted the recording before I could stop her. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice deadly calm. Monday morning you're getting in that van and going to Golden Years whether you want to or not. And if you try to fight me, I'll have you declared mentally incompetent so fast your head will spin. Karen. I've already spent $15,000 of the house money on bills and deposits. The facility is expecting you Monday and I can't get that money back. So you're going, Mom. One way or another. As she walked toward the door, she turned back with a look I'd never seen before. You want to play games with me? Fine. But remember, I still have power of attorney and I know doctors who will say whatever I pay them to say about your mental condition. After she left, I sat in my kitchen shaking. Karen had just threatened to have me committed using bribed doctors. My own daughter was willing to destroy my life to cover up her crimes. But what Karen didn't know was that I'd been one step ahead of her all along. 2 hours later she was back, pounding on my door. Open up, Mom. I know what you've been doing. When I opened the door, she was holding a piece of paper and her face was purple with rage. You think you're so smart, Mom? Let's see how smart you are when you're locked up in that facility. Monday morning arrived like a funeral day. I sat in my kitchen at 6 a.m., watching the sunrise through my window, knowing it might be the last sunrise I'd ever see in this house. At 8 o'clock, Karen's movers would arrive. By noon, I'd be locked away in Golden Years Care Center, and Karen would have my house keys in her pocket. At least that's what she thought was going to happen. At 7:30, I heard the rumble of the moving truck pulling into my driveway. My heart started pounding, but not from fear. From anticipation. Karen arrived right behind the truck, looking more confident than I'd seen her in weeks. She'd won, or so she believed. "Morning, Mom," she said, walking into my kitchen like she owned it. "I hope you're packed. The facility is expecting us by noon." I looked around my kitchen one last time, at the table where I'd fed my children breakfast for 30 years, at the window where I'd watched them play in the yard, at the coffee pot Frank had bought me for our 20th anniversary. "I guess I don't have a choice," I said quietly. "No, you don't. But Mom, you're going to like Golden Years. They have bingo on Wednesdays." As if bingo could replace a lifetime of memories. By 10 a.m. my house had been emptied. 32 years of my life packed into boxes and loaded onto a truck bound for storage. The movers were efficient and ruthless, treating my furniture like it was worthless junk instead of the pieces Frank and I had saved for years to buy. Lisa had flown back to Portland for an emergency surgery. Michael was stuck in Germany. David and Amy weren't speaking to Karen after what happened Saturday. I was completely alone. "Time to go, Mom," Karen said, jingling her car keys. "Your chariot awaits." I picked up my small suitcase and my purse and walked slowly toward her car. Martha was standing in her yard, tears streaming down her face. Eleanor from church had driven by twice, looking helpless. Even Mrs. Chin was watching from her window, shaking her head sadly. Everyone believed that Karen had won. As Karen opened the passenger door for me, I stopped and turned back to look at my empty house one last time. "It's hard to leave," I said softly. "I know, Mom. But it's for the best." I got into the car and put on my seatbelt. Karen started the engine and began backing out of the driveway. That's when I pulled out my phone. "Karen," I said, "before we go to the facility, there's something I want you to hear." "Mom, we don't have time." I pressed play. Karen's voice filled the car crystal clear. "Fine. Yes, I signed some papers for you. But it was for your own good. You would have just gotten confused by all the details." Then my voice. "So you admit you forged my signature?" Karen's response. "I handled your paperwork because you can't handle it anymore." Karen slammed on the brakes so hard we both jerked forward. "Where did you get that?" "I deleted that recording." "You deleted the recording from Saturday. This is the recording from Friday when you came by to pick up my mail. I've been recording every conversation we've had for 2 weeks." Karen's face went white as she realized I'd been playing her the entire time. "You can't use that in court. You didn't have my permission to record me. Actually, in California, I only need one person's permission to record a conversation. And since I was part of the conversation, I gave myself permission." That's when Karen saw the news van pulling up behind us in my driveway. What is that?" "That," I said, getting out of the car, "is Jessica Chin from Channel 9 News. I called her 3 weeks ago and told her about a daughter who was stealing her mother's house and forging signatures to do it. She's been very interested in this story." Jessica Chin was a sharp-looking woman in her 30s with a cameraman following her. She walked straight up to Karen's car. "Karen Williams? I'm Jessica Chin from Channel 9 News. We'd like to ask you some questions about elder abuse allegations involving your mother." Karen looked like she was going to be sick. I don't know what you're talking about." "We have recordings of you admitting to forging your mother's signature on legal documents. Would you care to comment?" That's when Robert Martinez's car pulled up. My lawyer got out with a thick folder of papers and a grim smile. "Karen," I called to her, "I'd like you to meet my lawyer, Robert Martinez. He's been helping me for the past month." "But Mom, you can't afford a lawyer." "Actually, I can. You see, there's something you don't know about me. Something your father and I decided to keep secret when you kids were younger because we were worried about you coming to us for money all the time." Robert opened his folder and pulled out a document. When your father died, he left me a life insurance policy worth $250,000. I invested that money carefully over the years. It's now worth almost $400,000. Karen's mouth fell open. I never needed you to sell my house, Karen. I never needed you to put me in a nursing home. I can take care of myself just fine, thank you very much. Robert stepped forward. Mrs. Williams, I have some bad news for you. Every document you filed regarding your mother's house sale contains forged signatures. The sale is void and you're facing criminal charges for fraud and elder abuse. That's impossible. I have power of attorney. You had power of attorney for medical decisions. You never had the right to sell your mother's property or forge her signature on financial documents. Jessica Chin was getting every word on camera. Furthermore, Robert continued, we've contacted the credit card companies about the fraudulent accounts you opened in your mother's name. That's identity theft, which is a federal crime. Karen looked around desperately, like she was trapped in a nightmare. But I spent the money. I can't pay it back. I used it to catch up on my mortgage and pay for Tyler's college. That's confession to theft, Robert said calmly. You might want to stop talking now. But Karen was past rational thinking. This is all your fault, Mom. If you'd just gone quietly to the nursing home, none of this would have happened. If I'd gone quietly, you would have stolen my house and destroyed my life. That's when another car pulled up. A government car with official plates. Adult Protective Services, Jessica Chin explained to her camera. They're here to investigate the elder abuse allegations. 2 social workers got out of the car and walked toward us. The lead investigator was a stern-looking woman with a clipboard. Mrs. Bush? I'm Sandra Rivera from Adult Protective Services. We've received some serious allegations about financial exploitation. Are you safe? I'm perfectly safe now, I said. But my daughter has been trying to steal my house and put me in a substandard care facility against my will. Sandra looked at Karen. Ms. Williams will need to interview you about these allegations. You have the right to have an attorney present. I don't need an attorney. This is all a misunderstanding. Ma'am, forging signatures and stealing from elderly relatives is not a misunderstanding. It's a crime. As the social workers began their investigation and Jessica Chin interviewed neighbors who had witnessed Karen's behavior, I walked back into my empty house. It felt strange without my furniture, but it was still mine. Still home. Martha came over and put her arm around my shoulders. Cecilia, you brilliant woman. How long have you been planning this? Since the day I overheard Karen talking about getting me declared incompetent. I knew I had to protect myself, but I also knew I had to let her dig her own grave first. Through my kitchen window, I watched Karen being interviewed by Adult Protective Services while the news camera rolled. She was crying now, finally understanding that her scheme had completely fallen apart. The house sale is void, Robert explained to me. Karen never had the legal right to sell it. And the buyers will get their money back from the fraudulent real estate agent who accepted forged documents. What happens to Karen now? That depends on the district attorney. But fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse? She's looking at serious prison time. As the sun began to set, the news crew packed up their equipment, the social workers finished their investigation, and Karen drove away in handcuffs. I stood in my empty living room, surrounded by the echoes of 32 years of memories, and realized something important. I had won. I had saved my house, my independence, and my dignity. But I had also lost my daughter forever. The morning after Karen's arrest, my phone started ringing before I'd even had my first cup of coffee. Mom, what the hell happened? It was Michael, calling from Germany at what must have been midnight his time. Michael, honey, calm down. I'm fine. Fine. Lisa sent me a news article with a headline that says, "Local woman arrested for elder abuse." That's my sister, Mom. And Lisa says you've been pretending to be confused this whole time. I could hear the hurt and confusion in his voice. My son had believed Karen's lies about my mental state, and now he was realizing he'd been manipulated too. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Michael. But Karen was trying to steal my house and put me in a nursing home. I had to protect myself. But why didn't you just tell us what was happening? Would you have believed me? Karen had you convinced I was losing my mind. There was a long silence on the other end. God, Mom. I'm so sorry. I should have come home and seen for myself instead of just taking Karen's word for it. You're a good son, Michael. You trusted your sister because that's what families are supposed to do. Karen betrayed that trust, not you. 2 hours later, Lisa called from Portland. She was crying before she even said hello. Mom, I'm so ashamed. I let her convince me you were sick. I was already researching memory care facilities. I was going to help her put you away. Lisa's sweetheart. No, Mom, listen to me. I'm a doctor. I should have insisted on examining you myself instead of just believing Karen's stories. I failed you as a daughter and as a medical professional. You didn't fail anyone. Karen was very convincing. She'd been planning this for months. That recording Jessica Chin played on the news last night. When Karen said she was handling your paperwork because you couldn't handle it anymore. I wanted to be sick. My own sister. The hardest call came that afternoon. David. Mom, I don't know what to say. Amy won't even look at me. David. I knew something felt wrong about the whole thing, but Karen promised me that Tyler's college would be paid for. I convinced myself that you really did need help, that we were doing the right thing. David's voice broke. I was going to let my own mother be put in a nursing home for money. What kind of person does that make me? It makes you human, David. And a father who was worried about his son's future. Karen took advantage of that. Amy says we can't accept any money that comes from hurting you. She's right. Your wife is a smart woman. She's threatening to leave me if I don't get help. Says I need therapy to figure out how I could even consider being part of something like this. Over the next few weeks, the legal system moved faster than I expected. Karen had confessed on camera to forging my signature, and with all the evidence Robert and I had gathered, the district attorney had an airtight case. Karen's first court appearance was devastating to watch. She stood in front of the judge looking nothing like the confident daughter who had tried to steal my life. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a public defender's borrowed blazer. Her perfect hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, the defendant systematically defrauded her own mother over a period of months. She forged signatures, opened credit cards in her mother's name, and attempted to have her placed in a substandard care facility against her will. This is elder abuse in its most calculated form. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that she was just a concerned daughter trying to help her aging mother. But the recordings, the forged documents, and Martha's security camera footage told a different story. The judge was not sympathetic. Ms. Williams, you violated your mother's trust in the most fundamental way possible. You used your position as her daughter to steal from her and lie about her mental capacity. This court sentences you to 2 years probation, 6 months of community service, and full restitution of all stolen funds. Karen broke down crying as the sentence was read. Your Honor, I was just trying to help my family. My husband lost his job and we were going to lose our house. Ms. Williams, financial desperation does not justify elder abuse. You're fortunate this court is showing mercy. But the judge wasn't finished. You are also permanently barred from having any power of attorney over your mother or any other elderly person. And if you violate the terms of your probation, You will serve the maximum sentence of 5 years in state prison. As Karen was led away to begin her community service, she looked back at me one last time. There was no anger in her eyes anymore. Just sadness and regret. I felt no joy watching my daughter face justice. Only a deep, aching loss. The house sale was officially voided, and the buyers got their money back from the real estate company's insurance. Golden Years Care Center refunded the deposit Karen had paid with my stolen money. But the real changes came slowly over the months that followed. 6 months after that terrible Monday morning, I was sitting in my kitchen again, but everything was different. I'd used some of Frank's insurance money to renovate the house with safety features, grab bars in the bathroom, better lighting in the hallways, a ramp to the back door. Not because I was incompetent, but because I was smart enough to plan for the future. Michael had transferred to a base in California so he could visit regularly. Lisa came down from Portland twice a month to check on me. David and Amy were in marriage counseling, working through the damage Karen's scheme had caused their relationship. And Martha next door had become the sister I never had. We had coffee every morning and watched out for each other like real family should. Karen and Doug lost their house just as she'd feared. They moved into a small apartment across town. Doug found work at a hardware store and Karen served her community service hours at a homeless shelter, feeding people who had lost everything. We didn't speak for 6 months. When she finally called, her voice was different. Smaller. Broken. "Mom? It's Karen. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I know you are, honey. I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that I'm getting help. Therapy. And I'm trying to understand how I became the kind of person who would do that to her own mother. What kind of person do you think that is? Desperate. Selfish. Willing to hurt the person who loved me most just to solve my own problems." We talked for an hour that day. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. But even now, a year later, our relationship will never be the same. Trust, once broken that completely, doesn't just heal with time and apologies. Tyler, Karen's son, comes to visit me sometimes. He's at community college now instead of USC, working part-time to help pay his tuition. He told me he's proud of me for fighting back, but ashamed of what his mother did. "Grandma Cecilia, I want you to know that I never would have accepted that money if I'd known where it came from. I know that, sweetheart. You're a good boy with a good heart. Mom's different now. Sadder, but maybe more honest. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled things differently. Could I have confronted Karen earlier before she got in so deep? Could I have found a way to help her with her financial problems without letting her steal from me? But then I think about Golden Years Care Center with its violations and understaffing. I think about losing my independence, my dignity, my home. I think about what my life would have been like if I'd been the helpless old woman Karen thought I was. And I know I did the right thing. Not just for me, but for every elderly person whose family sees them as a problem to solve instead of a person to love. Because here's what I learned from this whole ordeal. Getting older doesn't make you powerless. It doesn't make you a burden. And it doesn't mean you have to accept being treated badly just because the person mistreating you is family. I'm 67 years old now. I still live in the house where I raised my children. I still drive my own car, manage my own money, and make my own decisions. I volunteer at the senior center twice a week, helping other elderly people understand their rights and protect themselves from financial abuse. And when people ask me how I found the strength to fight back against my own daughter, I tell them what I wish I'd known years earlier. You're never too old to stand up for yourself. You're never too vulnerable to fight back. And family members who truly love you don't try to steal your life from under you. They thought I was just a helpless old woman ready to be managed and controlled. But what they didn't know was that I was never helpless. I was just waiting for the right moment to show them exactly how strong a grandmother can be when you threaten everything she's worked for. Because sometimes, the people who underestimate us the most are the ones who should know us the best. And that's a lesson they'll never forget. If you've experienced something like this in your own family, or if you know an elderly person who might be facing financial abuse, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Share your story, ask your questions. Sometimes we all need to know we're not alone in these fights. And if this story opened your eyes to the signs of elder abuse, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Because knowledge is power, and power is exactly what we need to protect the people we love, including ourselves.